Of all the things that people can do to improve their quality of life, being very selective about what goes into your body is at the top of that list. Even though it could be said that it is important to be careful about what you think about your self-talk, the things that you say to other people, who you listen to, what kind of music you listen to, all of those things are important. But if you give it a little bit of thought, you actually are using a lot of those faculties of thinking, of who you're listening to, your self-talk and everything like that I just mentioned, when you're making decisions about what to eat and drink. It's so important, yet so little thought is given to it. And you and so many other people are just, maybe you, I don't know, but I know a lot of people are thoughtlessly consuming things simply because they are generally regarded as safe and edible, which says nothing about whether they're actually healthy, because so many of the things that people consume in the long run cause serious issues. It's like one of the most pervasive evils that exist in the world, which is that carelessness about what people put in their mouths. Years ago, I wrote an article or blog on hypnoathletics.com, and it opened up with a line about something that Elio Gracie said, the father of the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu family in Brazil. And he said that disease enters through the mouth. And then from there I proceeded to write this entire blog about that, just surrounding that subject and that idea. I'm wondering now if it's the article titled Becoming Superhuman Through Toxin Elimination and Nutrition. I wouldn't be surprised if it was that one, just because of the fact that, I mean, that is a theme that that I run here, is this idea of elimination. And the most elegant way that I usually describe it now comes down to a story that was told by the physician Dr. Andrew Weil, who relayed the message in his book 8 Weeks to Optimum Health, where he talked about there was a river that was thriving and full of life, plants and animals living in, on, and around it. And then a paper company set up shop on the bank of the river, started poisoning it, and everything died. And for whatever reason, the paper company had to close up shop, and it stopped, of course, since it was no longer in operation, stopped polluting the river. And without any intervention of any kind, other than that the paper company stopped polluting the river, it came back to life. All of the plants and animals all repopulated the river. And yes, I'm looking at the article now. It was published on March 4th of 2009. So that's a good 17 years ago. And it's called Becoming Superhuman Through Toxin Elimination and Nutrition on eym.hypnoathletics.com. EYM stands for Exercising Your Mind, which is also another site that I have. But it starts off, it says, the great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master Helio Gracie, who passed this year at a very strong, active, and alert age of 95, has often been heard saying that disease enters through the mouth. So, and then I go on to say, also according to the makers of the Soliday toothbrushes, world-renowned heart surgeon and medical researcher Dr. Reinhard Voll reports that 80% of all illness can be treated or can be traced to the mouth. What you put in it, how well you keep it clean, and the chemicals or products you use to do so. So I'm not going to get too much more into reading that, but I spoke where it is and made my point. This is nothing new. And I've had a lot of ups and downs with how my body has responded to me because of constant experimentation. One of the first times that I talked about this was on a show that was hosted by my late friend Shandi Davy. It was called Karma Cafe on Blog Talk Radio, which was bought by the podcasting software company that I use now, which is called Spreaker. And I spoke about how I basically experiment, and I created back then, this was 2007, a protocol that was named FAST, F-A-S-T. The acronym stands for Food Awareness Subjective Testing. And a lot of it was inspired by the whole, the movement, like the Institute for Responsible Technology. There was a guy, Jeffrey, I don't remember his full name right now, but he wrote a book called Genetic Roulette. And, there was a whole lot of stuff about Monsanto and genetic engineering companies going on. And and then the other protocol, which was basically a fast track way to do it once you've completed the food awareness subjective testing, which takes 8 weeks because it was based on not only Dr. Andrew Weil's 8 weeks to optimum health, but also the hypoglycemic diet that was suggested by Dr. John Kappas, who's the founder of the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, where I at the time learned about the hypoglycemic diet as a student, earning my degree in clinical hypnosis, which I graduated from there in 2006. Same year I went online with hypnoathletics.com. And also there's something, I call it the Bregan withdrawal protocol, after Peter R. Bregan, who's known as the conscience of psychiatry, who in his book he teaches a protocol about how and why to stop taking psychiatric medications, and he describes a protocol in that book about how to do it. But that information, also another thing from the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, was a smoking cessation program, or how to stop smoking. And they also had a gradual withdrawal program. So those main things there are really what inspired the food awareness subjective testing, and the other one, which is called FEAST, F-E-A-S-T, Food Express Awareness Subjective Testing. And all of it is around this idea of removing toxic foods from our bodies. And really what that simply means is just that there are a lot of things that as I said earlier, are considered to be generally regarded as safe and edible, but are not really that good. And so I'll end with this next example that comes from cellular biology. And, if it impresses you any, a Nobel Prize-winning scientist named Christian de Duve wrote about this in his book, and it was actually what he won his Nobel Prize for, was the discovery of the lysosome. That the lysosomes in the cell are these organelles. Your cells have organs inside them, just like your body at large has organs. And the lysosomes are special in that there are a lot of these various different additives that come into the body. Like, for example, in psychiatric medication, psychopharmacology, and pharmacology in general, it's known about a system called the CYP450 enzyme system, and these enzymes are responsible for getting rid of and metabolizing the xenobiotics, or foreign molecules to the body. And the lysosomes have a similar function. They are there to catch any molecules that the body is not able to metabolize in a safe way, and so they're considered to be indigestible molecules, according to the language that Christian de Duve used. And it was a book, I don't know if I mentioned the title just now, but the book was called A Guided Tour of the Living Cell. And these lysosomes, they capture these indigestible molecules that can't be broken down by the body's regular systems. They're not nutrition, they're just foreign chemicals, and they're just not good for the cells. Can't use them for anything, no energy, nothing like that. And so the lysosome, which its name can mean to cut, dissolve, I sometimes say to destroy or break apart, but they're all similar. It literally means to it's a body that cuts and breaks apart and dissolves or digests. And so sometimes, however, it can't break apart. So there are even molecules that are indigestible even by the lysosome, even that's its job. It's sometimes, I've heard it referred to as the cell's, garbage disposal system. But the point is that, just like the river, if you continue to eat food that has all these additives, like an example I use a lot is peanut butter. The more natural and healthy peanut butters, you look at the ingredients and it might say just peanuts, or it might say peanuts and sea salt, right? And that's it. Not all of these other things that you need chemical dictionaries for, right? And the same thing with so many different foods. I mean, the amount of times I look at a lot of these store brand breads they bake in the bakery, and I see the list of all these things inside there, I just wonder to myself, how is that possible? Like, they must be using prepackaged flour to make the bread or something like that, or because it's the simplest foods that you would think it's just flour, water, yeast, maybe a little bit of pinch of salt or something like that, maybe some honey, to give, or molasses to give it some color and a little different flavor. But no, it's just this whole list of things that, when I look at it, it's these paragraphs of ingredients that are baffling. Now, anyway, so here's the point: is that those are the things that the cells and the lysosomes encounter. A lot of them that can't be broken down. And what happens if they can't be broken down? Then the lysosome eventually overloads and explodes, and all that toxic stuff spills out into the cell. It kills the cell. It spills out into other cells. Sometimes it kills those cells. But then eventually, it gets dispersed out into and distributed amongst the other cells that have the capacity to hold on to it. But these are just things that shouldn't be floating around in the body, but we're putting them in the body all the time. And this is called lysosomal storage disease in the book. Interesting, LSD. So lysosomal storage disease in the book, I believe. There's copies of it in my storage in California. But that's the essence of it. And we think about that. That's basically what we're doing to our bodies. We're overloading our bodies with so much garbage that eventually we're just our cells are just exploding and spilling sewage into our cells and poisoning us, and it's why we're so inflamed and people are bloated and they have all this soreness and stiffness and lethargy and arthritis and all of these things happening. And I'm not a medical doctor, but like I said, I've had my ups and downs experimenting with food and things like that, and I've realized that eating a mostly raw, organic, whole foods diet is the best thing that I do. Like, I mean, I am shredded according to like what people say, and just looking at myself in the mirror with my 8-pack and being vascular and everything like that. And I haven't done anything different to my exercise routine. All I did was change my diet back to what works for me, which is that raw or mostly organic and whole foods diet. And what does it mean, whole foods? So raw means uncooked, right? So I'm eating like just greens, just from the produce aisle, and whole and nuts, like almonds, cashews, walnuts that are not roasted, not salted, nothing added to it, just raw. That's it. And then whole means I can look at it and say, oh, this came from a plant or an animal or a nut or a seed, right? And I can see exactly what it is. That's what it means to be a whole food. You can identify it by looking at it. It's not some machine separated or mechanically separated chicken that's reformed into a nugget shape, or a meatball shape. I can see what it is. That's what it means to be a whole food. So there's nothing can hide in it. Nothing can be no fillers can be mixed into it. And so, and that's it. And of course, organic, has certain rules, but you can still look on certain organic products and see things like natural flavors or artificial flavors. And it's a wonder how sometimes these things get snuck into there. So, but that's it. Stop bursting your body open. Your cells are being poisoned. Your body's being toxified by so many of these products. And it's the one thing that we can do to improve the quality of our life, to increase the length, the timeline of our athletic longevity. And like me right now at 48 years old, I am hyperathletic. I am still, and I'll be 49 this year, I'm still doing backflips, spins, tornado kicks, cartwheels, handstands, five rounds on the heavy bag that are 5 minutes long each with a 1 minute break in between. And, I'm doing capoeira, which has a lot of acrobatic movements. And I'm jumping, crawling, running, climbing, spinning, kicking. I'm just having the time of my life because my body serves me. And if anybody wants to call anything a health secret, that's it. I'm not a genetic anomaly. The people in my family aren't fit like I am, because almost nobody that I know abstains from a lot of the toxic foods like I do. I go shopping for people all the time as a personal shopper, and the things that I buy for people, it's abhorrent. It kind of makes me sad. I have to just shut off my capacity. It's everybody has their own choice. You can do whatever you want. The thing is that so many people, here's the main thing, so many people are complaining about how their bodies are breaking down, and they're stiff and they're sore and they're tired and they can't think straight, and people in my age demographic are all talking about all these different ailments and all these different digestive things and arthritis and this and that, and none of it is bothering me at all because of the way I'm eating. It's the primary thing. I haven't changed the way I exercise. I mean, I've maybe increased it just because sometimes I have more energy, but I'm not a superhuman. Although that article I wrote called Becoming Superhuman, because comparatively, that's what it feels like sometimes. And even a lot of people that I see, like there's a lot of athletes and like people who do tricks and all these crazy acrobatic stuff. I'm willing to bet that if a lot of them, if they do use any substances, like whether it's tobacco or cannabis or alcohol or over-the-counter medications or anything like that, and were to clean up their food, that they would perform even better. Like I can't even imagine the kind of things that they would be doing if they're not already doing, cleaning up their food. So that's really the main health secret for athletic longevity, hyperathleticism, and overall quality of life. I am Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander.